And we are recording with Dr. Heather Gessling, not
Mhm.
Gensler, Gessling, on Thursday, July 13th, 2023 at 4:04 p.m. Eastern Time, episode 1295. And if you go in the description, guys, you can find her Twitter. You can find the links to the wellness company. Doctor, could you please introduce yourself to everyone and kind of, as with, really everyone I'm interviewing from the wellness company, which I think the first I had was Dr. McCullough. It's kind of
Uh-huh.
the same Genesis story, right? It's what we all saw was the complete corruption and utter
Yeah.
breakdown of integrity and ethics in medicine, the complaining,
Mhm.
and then everyone realizing, well, we complain forever and that feels good, and we can all pat each other on the back and say we're good people, or we can actually start to take action and build a parallel
Something.
system. So could you please
Yeah.
kind of introduce yourself and get into how you've got to where you are now?
Yeah. So I am a family medicine physician. I'm in Missouri. I graduated uh, residency in 2010 and started practicing in a rural town in Missouri and loved it. Never thought I would leave. Became chief of staff 6 years ago, or 8 years ago now. 6 years ago, or I was chief of staff for 6 years at that little hospital, and served it. I was devoted to it. I worked really, really hard. And so when 2020 came around, I just kept working really, really hard for my patients, tried to figure out what was going to work to keep them alive, doing research every minute I could, just reading everything I could to figure out what would work. And then when 2020 rolled around, realized, hey, it's worked. None of my patients have died yet. And then the vaccine came out, and that's when things started really getting crazy as far as being sort of ostracized and disrespected. I ended up being terminated mid 2021 because of the fact that I refused to follow the corporate vaccine protocol. And that was awesome, though, because I was able to break free of that system and start a clinic. I also had the ability to start doing work towards for medical freedom. Started doing educational seminars with several other physicians, and then in 2022, we several physicians we had the opportunity to start the wellness company, and this was the culmination of several years of waking up to the system, realizing that we had to just work at building something new, work at building a parallel system that doesn't involve insurance, which I think we should talk about because I think people are too stubbornly attached to insurance. And so working at figuring out ways to heal people and reverse their health and take that to a broader scope of care with more physicians and teaching them how to heal people and reverse their chronic disease, reverse their diabetes, reverse their hypertension, help them lose weight, and teaching physicians that it's okay to really deprescribe and get patients off of meds and not just
Mm.
always treat with meds. So we at the wellness company have had weekly educational seminars where we talk about all of these things, and we talk about the truth of medicine. We talk about the fallacy of evidence-based medicine. That was our seminar last night. And be able to educate physicians and bring together like-minded physicians so that they can feel supported, and we can actually be good doctors and break free of the lies, break free of the tyranny.
Can we let's go into it. The importance of what you're saying is people are too stubbornly attached to insurance. What break that apart. How come they don't need to be? Just as a question.
Oh, it's a really good and fun topic to bring up because I think that patients have been so, I guess, controlled and maybe even brainwashed by this whole insurance paradigm. patients think, well, if something's not covered by insurance, well, I'm just not going to do it. Or, if something's not covered by insurance, then that's what their decision is based off of, whether or not it's covered under their insurance, because they pay so much, right? And so they pay so much, they've got to use it. But what they're doing is contributing and enabling a very corrupt, evil, harmful system that does not have their health at heart. They do not care really about a patient like physicians should. Physicians should care about a patient regardless of what an insurance company says, or what a corporate or corporation says, or what a hospital administration says needs to be done. All of these things have gotten in the way of good patient care. And the insurance company, I was talking about it with a patient this morning in clinic, the insurance companies have become so overreaching. They have complete autonomy and no accountability to anyone. They can just basically make the decisions for the patient as far as what they're going to cover, what they're not going to cover, increase premiums, increase deductibles, and patients have no say. Physicians have little say. Physicians have so much paperwork. If they're in that insurance system, they have so much paperwork they have to do, prior auths and approvals and fighting back, peer reviews, or peer-to-peer authorizations. All of these things only increase the burden of administrative costs. Of course, everybody knows this, but what is there to do about it? Well, you leave the system. You go find a physician that doesn't take insurance. You realize that a lot of the services that are out there that are for lab services, imaging services, radiology services, all of those things can probably be bought and paid for at a much lower cost than what you're probably paying with a deductible once those services get submitted to insurance. You can get surgery out of network or out of an insurance network. You can pay for so many things without requiring insurance. I do think patients should have a low, sort of a low cost, as low as possible, high deductible plan for catastrophic coverage, but then otherwise stay outside of the system, because when you're in it, you're enabling it.
So admittedly, I'm kind of realizing as you're talking that this is a pretty big blind spot for me. I always feel like I have some sort of grasp of what I'm talking about, but I'm just kind of dawning on me. Would it be too generalized and too simplified to say that insurance is just like a racketeering middleman, like 1920s mob? Like, yeah, you give them $10 so you can go to the bar, but you're not getting anything out of it. They're not providing anything, but they're the muscle men.
Yeah. So this is becoming more and more true.
Okay.
This is what is exactly happening. Patients are realizing that they can't even afford to use their insurance anymore because they have such a high deductible. So they're paying for a product that they can't use. They have to go outside of the system to find lower cost services for labs and imaging, because their deductibles are so high. So they're in this trap of keeping an insurance that they can't use, and thinking that they have to sort of stay in the system. Like I have a direct primary care, direct patient care model, and so patients come to me, but they also, a lot of them still have insurance, and they think, my insurance requires me to have a doctor on my card that is in their system. And I'm like, no, just, if you have to have a name, you can pick a name, but you can see me, and you don't have to follow along with what your insurance is telling you as far as where you can seek care. That's another thing that patients think. They think that they're kind of controlled by insurance. And this is with all things. They think, if I have to get a Medicare wellness exam, or if they're telling me I have to get these vaccines, or if they're telling me I have to, do this preventative test or whatever, they're scared. They're scared if they don't fall in line. They think that, that something terrible is going to happen. Like they're obedient little soldiers that has to follow along with what their insurance company is telling them. I've been astounded over the years to see this happen more and more with patients. They like, but my insurance tells me I have to do this. And I'm like, but you're your own person. You're autonomous. You do not have to follow along with what the insurance is saying.
Well, I think for a lot of people, and I'm speaking for myself, so much of this stuff is just this kind of blur that happens on the rare occasions you need, to go get medical intervention. And it's, for someone like me, it's no different than going to I still have my dad, if I go to the mechanic, he's like, you need this and this, nothing else. I go there and they still try to pull a faster on you. Like, well, we gotta replace this. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, and they'll look you dead in the eyes and tell you earnestly that we gotta pull all the seats out and put in new tires, and we're just gonna throw away your car. Actually, you need to buy a new one. And and I feel like that's probably the same when it comes to, I do a podcast. I've done enough of these that if I wanted to, I could probably pull a fast one on someone trying to get into the podcasting industry. I'd be like, you need this camera, you need that. But the reality is like, you need nothing. You need a laptop and functioning internet. That's it. I feel like with insurance, you probably have medicine itself is daunting alone, right? It really is. It's a different language. It's hieroglyphics. They're talking about triglycerides and EKGs, and you're like, all right, dude, whatever. You trust the guy in the white coat or the woman in the white coat. With insurance, it's the same. Just kind of it's that tied into it. It's, well, we're deducting this and this, and you're sitting there in the ER with a little bracelet on your arm, and you're on like a gurney, and you're like, yeah, whatever. I don't. And then so you get 2 Tylenol and a B12 and a Benadryl, and then a month later you get a bill that costs as much as a Range Rover, and by then it's done, and you're like, what happened? And it's like getting pickpocketed. You don't realize till you're back at the hotel.
Yeah.
Is that any? Am I on the mark?
Well, yeah, this is the ridiculousness of where we're at right now. And a lot of patients are still kind of stuck in that system, but many, many, many are waking up and realizing they do not want to step foot in a hospital. They have no interest in submitting themselves to such a terribly broken system where, they get ridiculed if they haven't followed all the rules, like been vaccinated, or they get ridiculed if they're taking several vitamins, and they kind of get this, the medical provider kind of is belittling to them. I've heard this so many times lately. Like they look down on, they act like they're looking down on the patient with this paternalistic attitude, like they know best and the patient is stupid. This is what's happening so frequently. Patients are sick of it. They don't want to go in. They don't want to have anything to do with that. And then a lot of times the patients are more informed about many subjects than even the medical provider. I've seen it a lot.
I was, I think, 16 talking to there's this girl I was friends with, and her mom was a doctor. I just kind of remember in a passing conversation. My mom's a nurse. 2 of my uncles are doctors. A lot of my aunts are nurses. And I have a biology degree. I got into medical school and pharmacy school. I decided not to go, but just kind of growing up, it was kind of around me. I always remember in the bathroom, we always had, I think it was Tufts. Was that the one that do like the weekly news? I just remember reading that when I was like 12. It'd be like, Tufts, a new study says if you eat blueberries and this, I just remember reading that stuff. So sort of through osmosis, and growing up, my mom always forced us to eat healthy and no junk food. And, I'm blessed for that. But all that aside, I remember reading early on about like the benefits of fish oil to brain health and heart health. I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And I was 16 and I was talking about it, and I think I was at her house or something, and her mom was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, like what is it? Like is it EPA and DHA and all this stuff has benefits on cardiovascular health. And I think she was a cardiologist, and she was looking at me and she was like, we don't give like fish oil to people at the hospital. And I was like, no, it's like preventative health. And I remember I felt so stupid because I was like, oh, I just had my butt handed to me. And now I look back on it and I'm like, I was 16 and this practicing cardiologist was essentially like, what are you talking about, fish oil? And I can only imagine, I'm much more confident now, but I can only imagine extrapolated. What if you didn't know anything? You were like, all right, I'm not gonna I'm not going to question anything. It is that paternal,
Oh
you're
yeah,
wrong.
totally. Oh yeah, this is what's happening with patients. If they're really confident and bold, they'll they'll question or stand up for themselves, but many don't want to put up the fight.
Sure.
And really there's a lost opportunity to consistently educate these mainstream physicians that aren't willing to wake up to the truth about so many things. Sort of along these lines, there's a book that I just am so proud of, that has opened up the eyes of many people, which is about vaccines, called Turtles All the Way Down.
Heard of that.
And if your listeners haven't read it, they should. But at the back of each chapter are questions to ask your physician that are really, really good. And the questions are designed to make the physician realize they may not know as much as they think they do. And they're, respectful questions, but this is where we need to go to wake the healthcare system up, or just let it collapse, because that's what's happening. It's really not doing well. So many institutions aren't doing well. But if you want to try and wake your physician up, ask them respectful, pointed questions that are good at helping the physician want to seek truth.
It kind of feels like we're in that, for so long, the old guard will remain because, what is it? That which exists tends to persist. It'll remain simply because, and that's not always a bad thing, right? I mean, I would imagine all the door sizes I have are the same because it's probably the same door that's worked for 200 years. I don't know. But
Yeah.
and then there's like the antithesis to scientific debate is mockery, right? Oh, you think this, you think that. And that's, there's maybe some credibility in that you think the earth's, flat, and it's, yeah, you're an idiot. And there probably is some validity to mocking. It's not the best way to go about an argument, but sometimes there's validity. And again, back to the whole medicine kind of is hieroglyphics. It's you do feel like an idiot if you're asking something and the doctor looks down at you. But eventually, if there is a kernel of truth, that's the beauty of it, is it will survive. The truth doesn't mind being questioned. You can throw everything at it and it'll just keep bouncing off because it just is what it is. Do you think that's maybe where we're, and not necessarily just with vaccines, but kind of medicine as it is? As you go to the doctor, you have your health insurance, and we've just accepted it. You go to a hospital in the United States and you get a bill for $500 billion, and that's it, right? Are we maybe seeing the beginnings of where it starts to break down?
I hope we are, because this is not good for patients. Care is terrible, in my opinion. I mean, we saw this obviously through COVID, where patients were truly being killed with terrible care. They were given toxic poison medicines. They were put on ventilators. They were prevented from getting effective, early, cheap medicines. And so whenever it has gotten to the point that it's that out of hand, I hope it fails.
Yeah.
I think that there are some things that we need the mainstream system for. That's for like emergencies, like
Sure.
car accidents. I mean, that medicine is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Trauma medicine, there's probably little controversy there and little agenda driven medicine there. I mean, they're not using big pharma money necessarily. It is pure anatomic. So I would say, like, trauma medicine, we need some surgeries, but it's really interesting over the last 2 or 3 years, where patients have less and less faith in the hospital system. They do not want to go in for surgeries. So I've had patients that have like appendicitis or gallbladder issues. And interestingly enough, a lot of those can just be treated with antibiotics. I had a patient at the beginning of 2022 who was absolutely dead set against going into the hospital, and she was having right lower quadrant pain. And we did imaging, and I get a call from the radiologist, and it's appendicitis. And I call the patient. I'm like, it's appendicitis. And so she's like, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, you're going to have to go in the hospital. And she's like, no, I'm not going. I am not going. What can you do for me? And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I treated her. I did research. I tried to figure out what was the best antibiotic and treatment for appendicitis. We had to do 2 different rounds of it. And a year later, she's fine. A year and a half, actually. So rethinking all of this sort of the paradigm, the black and white issues that we thought were black and white, probably not so black and white. I have had similar events with patients with gallbladder pain. They don't want to get their gallbladder out. There's different protocols out there for gallbladder treatments, and we can also use antibiotics for that. But so patients have gotten to the point, and I'm not saying that every single time that this has a good outcome. There's probably patients out there that have refused to go into the hospital and they needed it. They, needed surgery, and I'm not advocating for patients to absolutely leave. What I am stating is that patients are sick of being treated terrible.
That's wild. I'm not going. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a sink or swim moment as a physician.
Mm-hmm. It totally was. Yeah. But you know what? This is where there's several physicians on Twitter that have, I see they're waking up and they're making comments about, wow, I have been lied to. Like they just like me, I realized my allopathic training, my MD training, what truth was there? I don't, I learned biochemistry, I learned anatomy, physiology. That's all good. That's great. But pharmaceutical treatment of disease by pharmaceuticals was the heaviest part of the training. So all of these physicians are looking at, our training, looking at where we're at, how much of it is truth, how much of it is lies. And all of these physicians waking up, I posted one time on one of them, I'm like, when you're waking up and you get to start practicing real medicine, this is where it gets so fun. This is where you get pushed into actually being a healer instead of a treater, and you get to actually reverse disease and restore health. It's much better.
Flesh that out. More fun. More feel like you're putting your skills to work.
Oh yeah. So you start thinking again. So you start thinking about how to reverse disease, how to heal disease. What is the foundation of disease? What is the cause of it? Not just throwing a medicine at it that takes 30 seconds, but how to restore a patient's health and go backwards and tell a patient, wow, it doesn't look like you need that blood pressure medicine anymore because you've lost 15 pounds and you've reduced all your inflammatory foods and your body's happy and it's not raging anymore. And so let's get you off of this medicine, or let's reduce your diabetic medications. I don't have any patients on insulin anymore. All it takes is a 0 carb, 0 sugar diet, and you do not need insulin. And that's my favorite is carnivore. I'm absolutely a fan. I've seen tremendous results from that. It is the most anti-inflammatory healing diet, and it definitely helps restore health.
I guess I do kind of see that as my favorite class ever in college was organic chemistry, I guess because I hate myself, but I genuinely love that class. And most people hate. I still think about it. I loved it. I loved the puzzle pieces. And I loved tests because I love to see just how much, because you can only do the practice problems in the book so many times before you start to memorize them, and then you're like, well, now I'm not learning. I always loved the test because it was just, you had to put everything at. You'd start to go at it from one angle, and then you go, wait, no, we can't do that because of this. You're like, okay, well, we got to use, hydrogen and palladium, but no, we can't do that because you have to do. And you kind of sit back and you look at it, and you start moving it, and you start, this will work, and then this will work, and then you start to see it's like when you're putting a puzzle together, but not when you're putting individual pieces together, but it's like when you have a couple of chunks already assembled, and then you start to see how the chunks bridge, and you go, and then if we hit that, then we can do blah, 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 and ding, 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 get the green light. It's like the dopamine rush. You're like, there it is. And then you just see this beautiful thing play out. And it's just,
Yeah.
I mean,
Problem solving is fun. And
it's
that's what you're
rewarding.
describing. Problem solving is where physicians should, that's what they should be doing. That's the curriculum I did in for my medical school. That's why I went to that medical school in Missouri. But we have lost the ability to problem solve and reverse disease. We just think, okay, well, we have problem solved and diagnosed a disease, and here is the pharmaceutical,
Yeah.
instead of problem solving and reversing that disease. And that's so much more fun.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is just like personal subjective fun, and then there's like a whole other level to it. And it's like, hey, regardless of how much fun you're having, you're actually saving the patient. It's like, oh yeah, that part too. Like, yeah, it's one thing to say this is more challenging. I feel like I'm putting my tools to work. I feel like I'm getting my neurons sweating. And then it's not
Yes.
just that, it's, oh, and by the way, you're not getting someone, addicted to, Oxycontin or something, or you're not having
Oh,
someone addicted
yeah.
to some
Yeah.
like GABAergic or something. You're also making them better, and it doesn't cost anything. It's like, yeah, man, just stop eating white bread.
Well, yeah. So it's crazy how much sugar creates inflammation. When patients stop eating sugar, so many patients, time and time again, they say, oh my gosh, within a few days, I realized I wasn't really having pain anymore. Their
Wow.
chronic heel pain or their chronic ankle pain or knee pain is due to inflammation. And sugar is poison, toxic. So are seed oils. I think everybody has been learning that, but
Hmm.
seed oils are in everything. You got to look at everything that you eat, your mayonnaise, your salad dressings, the cookies, the crackers, everything you eat, the chips, going out to eat and eating chips in a Mexican restaurant. Ugh, that is like so bad. It's toxic corn,
But it's
it is
fun.
toxic carbs, it is toxic seed oils. Every single component of those things are bad for you. So patients need to learn to reduce the inflammatory ingestion of inflammatory things. This
Mm.
the seed oils, the sugars are the biggest.
Yeah, it always is kind of. I mean, I've been exercising since I think I started working out, lifting weights in 2003. I was 13, but I've been doing
Mm-hmm.
it for most of my life, and it always is. It's so predictable. When a friend asks you for something, you kind of, hey, these are the ropes. Just get started with this, and you really got to get the 8 hours of sleep. You're not going to work out well. Drink a little more water than you want to because you're probably dehydrated. Just like the most basic, elementary things, like
Mm-hmm.
without failure. 72 hours later, you have me like, dude, I've never felt this good in my life. And it's like, it's really, it's just that. They're like, this is, and I'm like, this is like when I was in college and like I'd always be working out and I wouldn't go out drinking. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna wake up and go for a run at 5. And they'd be like, you're so disciplined. And I'd be like, I'm not
Sounds like my
disciplined
son.
I'm like, I'm not disciplined at all. I always told them I'm just y'all, but extrapolated. You guys are going out and drinking and smoking pot because it feels good. I'm like, I want something that feels even better. So I guess more than anything, I'm a true drug addict. I'm like, I want the endorphins and the enkephalines. I want to feel good. And it was just, that's all it is, man. I'm not doing it because it's discipline and because it's hard. I'm doing it because it makes life so much easier.
Oh, it does. And this is what I tell patients when they start removing those inflammatory, toxic things from their diet. They realize how good they feel.
Yeah.
And then if they bring it back in, they're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
dang.
that's yeah. And then you take a
Yeah.
break. You're like, yeah, I worked out for a week, and you're like, I had just whatever. I ate some cookies, and they're like, I was straight up depressed the next day, and it's like, yeah, that is, and it really is. It's kind of almost a spiritual experience, like in all seriousness. When so like if I over Christmas break or something, I'll just completely drop the entire like workout exercise regimen for like 2 weeks. And I regret nothing. Just drinking
Mhm.
heavy beer, mom's cooking, desserts, sleeping all day, watching TV. Like it's great and I regret nothing. However, towards the end of it, I almost start to forget what it likes to feel good, what it feels like to feel good is
That's right.
I start to
Mhm.
get mopey, lethargic, apathetic. You don't want to
Which
move.
shows you how important all of those things are for mental
Yeah.
health. Nobody will talk about. I mean, I know there's some people out there talking about it, but the mainstream treatment of mental health, depression, anxiety, or whatever, is to do medication when there are so many better ways. Nutrition and removing toxic things helps your mood and all of those things so much, and it's a long lasting thing. You know,
Mm,
when patients start these psychiatric meds, they may feel better temporarily, but the problem is, and this is what I tell patients, the problem is that those psychiatric meds essentially create and continue the disease and
yeah.
worsen it. You feel this boost and then you have to stay on it or go up on the dose. It's not the answer.
And when I do take a break, like a Christmas break, and it's so like if I, I'll take like one day off a week from the gym, eat some junk food and just kind of relax. And that's just enough that I feel good. I find once I hit a second day off, I start to feel the lethargy come in. And I'm like, up, kill it now, kill it now. But even then, I can still see the light at the tunnel that I'm leaving. And I'm like, it's there. Let's go back to it. You're starting to feel bad. Let's go back to it. If I take more than 10 days off, I start to forget that I can feel better. Even though I've been working out for 20 years. If I take 10 days off, I'm depressed. Well, I mean, what's the point of any of this? Life is so hard. And then I'll hit the gym once and I'll eat healthy. And by the end of the day, I'm like, oh, yeah, like this is life. And then I think, what about the people who've never experienced that? I'm lucky. I had a mom that raised us and forced us to exercise and forced us to eat healthy.
That's
What about
good.
people who've never experienced that, though? And they don't know that that even exists.
Man, and it's really rampant where parents, even parents that you think they're kind of smart, all they do is allow kids to have the mainstream foods that are like just because it's a food, it must be okay to eat. If it's,
Edible
if
like
it's
food
available to
substance.
buy, it must be okay. This is where we're at, where, parents just kind of blow off really watching their child's health. And all of that sugar is terrible for patients, for their reproductive system, for their lifelong health. I
Yeah.
mean, they can develop, PCOS and fertility problems, irregular cycles. They can develop diabetes. They can have boys, if they're overweight, they have excess estrogen production and decreased testosterone. They're just sitting on the couch. So all of these toxic foods are designed. I honestly think they're designed
Yeah.
to make patients unhealthy, unhappy, and controllable.
Yeah. I think it probably started as like cost cutting, and then very quickly you start to see the overlapping where you probably had someone like 40 years ago working in the medical field that who knows also had a business degree, and they're like, well, hold on just a second. That
Well, there's
sugar.
there's several aspects of this. So we can go back
That
a
Harvard
long
study.
time ago, 100 years ago, when Kellogg
Yeah.
was
Breakfast
making
cereal.
cereals. Do you know, this is what my son found out, and he said he hasn't. I asked him for the source. This is just sort of like potentially not perfectly correct, but he said that Kellogg was a Seventh-day Adventist, very religious, and he wanted to be able to control sexual desires in men, like so that they don't like are not sexually immoral or
Sure.
masturbating or whatever. He wanted them to have that sort of decrease in libido. And he knew that his foods, like the oats and the grains, would do that. And he did that intentionally. So whenever we've been told, eat all of this oatmeal every morning, eat these grains, man, they're so bad for hormones. They increase insulin resistance. It's the last thing you want.
Yeah.
It's not good for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the oldest story ever, right? It's like the Epic of Gilgamesh. And
Yeah.
there's a guy who isn't he's like he's like half man, half god, and he's kind of bucking this. If I recall, he's like wants to usurp the existing god or something, and he gives them hookers or prostitute, where it was 10,000 years ago, harlots, and
Yeah.
I like a huge and like bountiful food, and it's so that it
Oh,
becomes domesticated.
so
He
there you
stops
go.
fighting. He stops trying to take the throne, and it's
Yeah.
like, hey man, that's there's
Life
some
is
truth
good.
to that, and
Yeah.
I do think that that's what you want, though. You don't want, I mean, if you're in the power structure of a society, you don't want masculine men.
Oh
You don't
yeah,
want
you
them.
don't want masculine men. And
No.
also the other thing that has happened is this whole sort of stupidity and
Oh yeah.
ridiculousness of the low fat craze, low fat. So basically fake food. We've been doing that for decades because we've been told that is what helps with heart disease. And that's all a ridiculous lie. It's led to increased heart disease and obesity. And so when patients are fat and unhealthy, they're they're
They're
not
not,
warriors.
they're not, it ain't revolting. Yeah, the only ones you want to do well is like your Praetorian Guard, and you'll select them and train them and nourish them. But yeah, I mean, your brain's 3.5 pounds of fat. You know, it goes hand in hand.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you do start to see it all come together, as it is not meant for you to live any sort of productive, viable life. And I mean, to the mental health thing, it really is above all else. That's why I exercise. I mean, I can go back 15 years, and days I didn't exercise, I would just be dreary. And it's something that is so important to me. I'm not saying chemical balances don't exist. In 2014, I lost my older brother to suicide. This stuff's very near and dear to me. However,
Mhm.
I know that there's a handful of things that you need to do first before you go to grabbing a pill. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, and your brother, I'm so sorry to hear about that. There could have been so many things that were lacking, like or toxins that he was exposed to. It it could have been a lot of things.
it absolutely, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a neurologist, and there's certainly, neurotransmitters and chemical imbalance. Clearly, I mean, there are people with paranoid schizophrenia. They don't have that because they didn't hit the gym. I get that. I'm humble enough to say I know what I don't know. However, from my own experiences, there are a handful of things you can do. I mean, 8 hours non-negotiable. 8 hours of sleep, like non-negotiable. Like you would never let you. I don't let my chart. I don't. I start to get anxious if my phone goes below like 70% battery. I have a I have several of these batteries. I mean, there's an outlet 3 feet from me, but no, I got a battery right here just in case my phone goes. Because what if I need it? What if I need it for anything? Incorrect. What if I do
Oh,
need it? Well, what if
well,
your
that's
body needs you? What if your body needs you tomorrow? Well, I'm just going to the office. All right. Well, how about your mental health? Are you too tired to hit the gym or respond to that email that might lead to a new job opportunity or decide to get better groceries? Even that, just that little extra boost if you're not sleeping enough, but then that goes to other things. I don't do
yeah,
podcasts if I can't hit the gym.
yeah.
Because they're horrible. I can't. What if it's your doctor? Get you work for Exxon Mobil? I mean, sorry, the wellness company. Yeah, no, it's all. I'm fading in and out, and it's no. You got to exercise, and then another huge one I'd say, and it's I do it after exercise is meditation, or if you want prayer, but 20 to 30 minutes of just sit down,
Absolutely. I'm a
quiet.
big fan. I mean, it's so required. Your quiet time in the morning,
Oh
your
my,
prayer time, it's crucial for
oh my,
that's what I have to have in order to
I
I
can't
know
operate.
if I don't get that in the morning.
Bad day. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
thoughts are running. Again, that's another thing where podcasts are bad. Like my tension span goes down, and the guest will finish talking, and I'll realize I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah. So, how about that? What it's. But then versus when you get 8 hours of sleep and you hit the gym and you do some sort of meditation, it's not even that you come up to baseline. There's actually something far. I mean, it's almost religious. You do start to you're like, oh, you start to understand all those, from whatever religion you want, pick and choose, but you start to understand those old texts. Like, oh, this is the day the Lord has made. You go outside, you're like, the clouds are just, you hear the birds chirping, the
Yeah, and
sun on your
everything's
skin,
beautiful.
and
Yep.
you're like, life is great. And
Yeah.
normally, if you're not living a healthy lifestyle, I know for me at least, whenever I'm not exercising or not focusing on my health, the only time I get that moment of bliss is on a Friday, 2 beers in. You're like, life isn't that bad, and it's like that's not sustainable, man. That's not
It's
sustainable.
fascinating.
That can be every day.
This subject of sleep, it's so important
It's insane.
and it's insane. And so a lot of things that people are doing during the day that they don't think, oh, it's going to affect my sleep at night. They don't realize like caffeine stays in your system for so long. The half-life is long. You drink a coffee in the afternoon, it is absolutely going to reduce your quality of sleep. You may be able to get to sleep, but you're not going to have the same restful sleep. That reminds me. So we do have if you're having trouble with sleep, our wellness company has a really, really good formula that we have gotten so many amazing testimonials about. And it's so good. It's so good that I think you should probably just try taking one. The back of the bottle says try taking or start with two, but I think you should start with one. But it has non-melatonin based herbal ingredients that have really helped people with sleep. So back to what I was saying about like caffeine, you've got to be thinking all day about what's going to lead up to your nighttime routine. It's crucial. You don't want to be doing, drinking caffeine during the day. You don't want to be doing all of these stressful things at night. You got to make sure you got a blue light filter, of course. You got to power down some of your electronics a little bit earlier. You got to be in a daily routine so your body has a good cycle. You need to be trying to get up with the sun so that you have that sort of light hit your eyes and stimulate your brain and get your day going. But sleep has been completely like sort of disregarded as who needs sleep when you die. You don't need that many hours of sleep. You can live off of, reduced sleep, but you are so right. It is crucial. People are not going to be as productive. Their mental health is not going to be as good if they don't get good sleep.
And you can sacrifice it. I mean, go to a party with your friends you haven't seen in a couple of years. Yeah, sure. Go wild for a couple of days. I get it. Finals week. Yeah, sometimes you're burning the candle. I understand. I do it on this podcast. If I have some huge opportunities that I cannot miss, yeah, man, we're just not. I'll have a talk with myself. I'll be like, yeah, we're just not. We're probably not gonna have good sleep tonight, and I'll apologize to my future self. But that is once in a blue moon. But I mean, and I'm maybe not the best argument for bedtime. I go to bed extremely late and I wake up late, but I do keep the same exact sleep schedule every single day. I get tired at the exact same time. But I mean, I won't, 4 hours before I go to bed, I stop drinking water. I'll chew gum if my mouth gets dry. So I don't have to, I'm not waking up and go to the bathroom. 2 hours before, it's in bed, lights off. And even just something as simple as if you have your legs up, no, put them down flat. Just you can feel your muscles start to relax.
Totally.
Dim down your phone.
Yep.
Oh yeah, put on the orange filter, and then even that, you put it down entirely. No matter how dark the screen is, just your brain engaging with tech. Put it down. Let the thoughts start to just go like that. Just kind of go out. And then a huge one I always say is, I need about 7 hours of sleep. So every night I make sure I have about 8.5, because there's nothing worse than laying down and going, I gotta be asleep now. I have to be asleep. You're not going to go to sleep, man. So give yourself, but my point of all of this is with like sleep itself is I remember I was a sophomore in college and I was a terrible student my freshman year, and my sophomore year, the first day of school, I was like, I want to be a doctor. And all my friends were laughing at me. And then that's just all I did for the next 6 semesters was study and get straight A's.
So how come you didn't choose to go to medical school?
I got in after 6 months of 6 semesters of just studying nonstop, doing, independent research, letters recommendation, shadowing everything. I aced the MCAT. I scored in the top 5 percentile, and I got into the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. And I just felt like my heart wasn't in it. And I felt it really had been creeping into my mind for the previous maybe 12 months. And I think a lot of it was probably originally fear-based. I was not doing well. I was living in a frat house at Valdosta State University and was like, I'm going nowhere fast. And I think a lot of it was like, well, if I become a doctor, that will solve my problems. And it served its purpose. It did get me back into shape and develop good habits. But when I got in, I did the thing. I felt like I finally jumped through the hoop. But by the time I got in, I didn't even really care anymore. And I was like, my heart is not in this.
Well, your challenge was to get in, and you got in.
Well, that's the thing is I got in and I'm like, well, now what? And it's like, well, now you got to go to medical school. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. Like I got in, I got the letter and was like, I got the trophy. And I could feel like the intensity it took for me to ace these classes. That very thing was burning out. And I was like, I can still show up and do the work. But there was a flame inside of me that was pushing me to do it. And it went out. Like I work hard at the podcast. Most people could, if you really wanted to, you could find guests and do it. There's a reason why I do like 10 a week, is because there is just an insane energy inside me to do it. But I remember right when I started, I was like, I need to get, I was like, did the math. I was like, I need to get straight A's every semester for the next 3 years to bring my average up. And I got a spot doing aquatic toxicology research in some lab. It's whatever. Point of all of this is I remember going in one Saturday and I had just happened to go to sleep early the night before. And I was in there and I was doing work. And I also had like biology flashcards. I was like killing two birds with one stone. And I was like, I feel great. I mean, I feel like I'm on a drug. And I was like, what is this? And I realized I'd gotten 8 hours of sleep. And I was like, I guess I hadn't slept well in like a year. That's when I started getting 8 hours of sleep. I was like, if you don't get 4 hours of sleep and go to bed shit faced, you actually wake up feeling good. I was like, what is this? It's like a cheat code. And so that's my whole point. But that's applicable with exercise, with meditation. It's all these things that it's not as easy as just taking a pill, right?
Right.
But
Right.
it's much more long lasting. It's much more organic. There's a foundation to it. Instead of burning newspaper, it's like burning a log. It's slow, but it's real. And I get the hesitation to go into it because it's difficult and there's not someone in a white coat telling you to do it. But that's often where the answer lies. I don't know where I was going with that whole tirade, but yeah, that's my
Well, I started with asking why you didn't go to medical
Oh
school.
yeah.
You got that answer. And
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I did that. And then I was like, I want to do pharmacy. So I got into pharmacy school. And then it was like, I don't know if I want to do this either. And yeah, that led me down a long path to where I am now. But I mean, I guess for me the real takeaway is mental health. And I think it's a microcosm because it's probably applicable to all forms of health, to endocrinology, to digestion, to whatever, reproduction.
Oh yeah.
But for me, I've personally experienced that the biggest effect is not, therapy is good, medication's good. I get it. Man, just doing simple things, reducing the number of calories you eat, extra.
Yeah, intermittent fasting is
yes.
Intermittent fasting is the bomb. I mean, it makes people feel amazing. If we're always eating, your body doesn't get to do anything else but digest if you're always eating and you always have that insulin release and you're always driving in, sugar and calories into your cells. It's just an exhausting process to always be eating. Your body loves not having to digest. And whenever you don't eat late at night, which so many people do, they snack, then your body gets to do all of this amazing healing of your brain, finding cancer cells and getting rid of them, and finding old cells and senescent cells, getting rid of them. And then skip breakfast. There we go again, back to Kellogg, telling us that the most important meal of the day is breakfast. It's not. It makes us like probably eat more calories than we need. It breaks our fast. It breaks that sort of clean fuel burning time, makes us fat. So we don't need breakfast.
I eat in a 2-hour window every day at the end of
my wow. That's not bad. You can do that.
It's again, I don't know how to do anything in moderation. So if I'm going to intermittent fast, I'm going to intermittent fast like a psycho. But no, man, I don't eat breakfast. I haven't eaten since 8 p.m. last night. Like this is what I do every day. And again, if I switch it up now and I eat like a meal, I'm doing the podcast and I feel like I'm pregnant, like my belly's full and I'm like nodding off and I'm like, yeah, it's a great story. And I'm like hiccuping and stuff. And I'm like, oh, hey, you're just high off your body digesting. It's just taking the blood away from your brain. I'm like, hey, it's a great story, Dr. Gessling. Thank you. I'm just like burping and stuff. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. If it hurts, it's probably good for you. Go to the gym and it hurts, you're probably doing good. Are you hungry? It's probably good for you. That's all.
The amazing thing is when you do intermittent fasting, it breaks your cycle of hunger. That is,
I'm never hungry.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's how it is. People can't believe it. But I'm like, when you start doing intermittent fasting where you don't eat past your dinner time, 7, or in your case, 8, and you don't have breakfast, man, when it comes time for you to eat lunch, okay, you get hungry. That's fine. But it's not like you're hungry all the time. Like people typically are. They're constantly thinking about food. They're constantly hungry because they're always getting that insulin surge and they're always feeding that. It's a good cycle to break.
That's one of the more crazy things about it is if I take a cheat day and eat a huge meal all day the next day, I'm so hungry.
So starving. And that's exactly right. It has to do with that insulin release, has to do with driving all of that fuel into the cell and that insulin sort of lingering and your body thinks it needs more fuel. It's exactly right.
Yeah. And then days where I barely eat, I'm really not hungry up until about 8 p.m. And another odd thing, exercising, I'm never as hungry if I exercise. And if I don't get enough sleep, I'm so hungry all day. It really is. It's so simple and it's so in your face, but it's just the antithesis of everything we've been taught.
Totally. It absolutely is. Yeah.
Um, well, let's wrap this one up. And do you have any closing comments? Anything I didn't touch on? I don't really know what we touched on this
Did we give
podcast.
the website? So our website for the wellness company, I want everybody to go take a look, twc.health. I'm on Twitter at hgessling. And I can't remember. Every time I tell myself I need to memorize what our Twitter handle is for the wellness company. But I think if you go to my Twitter, you can find the wellness company. And so we talked about restful sleep. I just need to talk about our most important product that is so timely right now, which is spike support. Everybody needs to be aware that there is help out there. If you're vaccine injured, if you have long haul COVID, if you're worried about being around others that are maybe shedding, then spike support is important. And I really think everybody needs spike support. There's so many benefits to it. The most important ingredients are nattokinase and dandelion root, which help prevent attachment of the spike protein to the ACE receptor, which is important. And it also helps degrade spike protein, nattokinase does. And it also helps prevent and break down fibrin clots, which has become so common in those that are suffering from vaccine injury. So it also has black cumin seed in it. I was on a morning show the other day talking about it, and I realized I start taking spike support if I feel like I'm getting sick, and I realized, oh, it works so well because of that black cumin seed in there. So I want everybody to know about that product.
I probably should, and I'm not getting a penny, just FYI for everyone listening, but I probably should take it. I'm not vaccinated, but is genuine question, is shedding that big of a thing?
Shedding happens. We don't know how long it happens
Okay.
after somebody is vaccinated. We don't know if it's sort of indefinite, if it's more closely timed to when they get like a booster or when they have gotten their first, vaccines. We don't know, but it absolutely is happening. And the format of it is up for debate. There's a lot of discussions right now about how exactly that's happening. Exosomes. It could even happen because of potential DNA plasmid contamination in the vaccines that's creating that's going into gut bacteria and replicating there. It could potentially even be passed through sort of this infectious disease process where if somebody's exposed to another person's, stool or whatever, like infectious disease happens right now. Like we get, GI illnesses and stuff. It could happen that way as well. But we don't have definitive answers on that.
Sure. Yeah. Good Lord. Well, that's terrifying. Not to leave everyone on a scary note, but Dr. Gessling, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to have you on again. Thank you for putting up with my rants and rambles, as what this show mostly is just me yelling like a crazy person in front of the camera and the guest nodding politely. So thank you so much for coming on. In the description, guys, is her Twitter, is the Wellness Company, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Tommy. See you later.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching.